Since the early 20th century, Bedouin tribes of the Naqab, descendants of ancient Canaanite people, have practiced sustained land use across the desert region now claimed by the State of Israel. These communities cultivated wheat, grazed flocks, maintained seasonal life, preserved their oral land tenures, traditions that stretch back thousands of years. But under the British occupation and later the State of Israel, their historical claim to the land was systematically erased through legal reclassifications. The Ottoman Mawat land designations originally meant to manage uncultivated zones for reasons of tax collections were reinterpreted by the Zionist legal institutions to strip the indigenous Bedouins of land ownership rights unless backed by official deeds, documents the state never issued to them. In the 1950s, under martial law, the Naqab's Bedouins were forcibly confined to a fenced zone known as the Sayyaj, losing over 90% of their traditional land. Today, these communities remain caught between legal invisibility and political exclusion, branded as squatters on their own tribal territory. By 2024, more than 35 villages remain unrecognized, denying the residents access to clean water, electricity, paved roads, healthcare, and public education. In villages like El Araqib, bulldozers have seized homes over 200 times, while families continue rebuilding on their ancestral tribal territory. The government justifies these actions under national development and conservation mandates. Yet, 46 of Israel's 68 national parks now sit atop the ruins of the indigenous Palestinian Bedouin villages, transforming spaces of culture and heritage into curated environments for tourism. This is not merely displacement, my friend. It is an act of cultural and legal annihilation, where indigenous space is overwritten by state geography. Meanwhile, 1.6 billion shekels have been allocated for new Jewish-only towns in the Naqab in 2023, with zero investment in Bedouin infrastructure. The genocide is not rhetorical, it's architectural. Internationally, this stands in direct violation of the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous People, UNDRIP, to which the State of Israel is a signatory. Article 26 of the Declaration affirms the right of indigenous people to land traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used. Article 21 guarantees the right to access public services without discrimination. None of this is reflected in today's treatment of its indigenous population. No reservation systems exist, no tribal recognition framework is in place. Unlike the 574 federally recognized tribes in the United States, many of which operate land trusts, schools, and healthcare clinics, Bedouin clans remain invisible under the State of Israel law, denied even the right to be called indigenous. This is not an oversight, it's a state policy. What is at stake here is not just survival, but identity. When you deny a people their name, their land, and their ability to speak for themselves, you're not just enacting policy, you're committing erasure. State of Israel's refusal to recognize the Naqab Bedouins as indigenous is not based on evidence but on political calculus. Because to recognize them would be to admit that Zionism is not the first name inscribed on this land. It would require admitting that the desert is not empty, that these people were here long before, and that sovereignty is not a script written in 1948. It is a living history carried by clans whose ancestors stood beneath the same stars, drank from the same wells, and buried their dead in the same earth where bulldozers now dig. This is why we speak. Not to provoke pity, not to brag, not to beg for inclusion, but to affirm what no colonial regime can erase. Our claim to this land is older than your ports, deeper than your settler roads, and stronger than your genocide. The Naqab is not a frontier to be conquered. It is a homeland already inhibited. Indigenous recognition is not a slogan. It is a legal, moral, and historical imperative. Action. And if the world can recognize tribes across continents, it must recognize them here too. Because silence is no longer neutral, and forgetting is no longer an option.